Welcome to the Power 365 show. Today we're chatting with the General Manager of Power BI, Arun Ulag. So this is a very interesting conversation where we kind of drill into a bit of the history of where Power BI has come from, and it's very short 4 years, but it's, ultimately market domination in the cloud BI space. And kind of, we also look at where things are going and what can partners do now? What can, if you're thinking of using PI in your business, what steps can you take now? And as well as we talk about the role of the consultant and community engagement from a Power BI perspective. Full show notes can be found at nz365guide.com. Now, let's get on with the show. Arun, welcome to the Power 365 show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. Very excited to be here.
It's good to have you on the show and to talk about all things Power BI. But before we get underway and talk about the details there, I'd like to get to know you a bit. Can you tell me more about your personal journey into IT so far?
Sure. It really started when I was, in high school. My dad bought a PS2 computer and somebody lent me a book on Visual Basic. That's how I got started. That was, I just fell in love with programming, and Basic was awesome to get to know how to get started with software.
Okay. So have you always been in Seattle, or where do you, is that where you reside, actually? I just assumed that you'd be working in Redmond, so where are you based?
Yes, I am based in Seattle. So it's actually Bellevue, which is about 20 miles from Seattle. I grew up in India, moved to the US about in 1995. So it's been a while, but I've lived in the Bay Area, and then for the last 15 or so years in Seattle.
Wow. And originally, where did you come from?
From Chennai in India. So it's on the southeastern coast.
Very good. And when you're not working, kind of what do you pass your time with?
We have 2 boys at home, and the youngest is 18 months old. So guess where all my free time goes. Yeah,
I bet. Do you ever get back to Chennai?
I do occasionally. My folks still live there, so about a year, every 12 to 18 months or so, we head back to spend some time with them.
Oh, that's so good. I assume, I've been out of New Zealand now for, I think, 8 years, but I definitely miss, not having the family, etc., around all the time.
Yeah, it's especially nice when you go in December and it's cold and rainy in Seattle and it's warm and sunny back in Chennai.
So true. So what was your journey into Microsoft?
I interviewed with Microsoft in 1995. I had an offer to join as a software developer, I think in the Excel team at that point. But at that point, I was so excited about starting my own company. So I said no, and I went and joined a small startup, and a few months later started my own software company. Did that for about 6 years. We were 50, 60 employees by the time I sold it. And then I went to business school, and I thought, Microsoft, they could teach me a thing or two. So I decided to join, to come over here. That was back in 2003.
Wow. Okay, so that's interesting, because my timeline is similar, with 2003 being the year that Dynamics was launched, and that's kind of been my product of choice for the last, about 16 odd years now. So that gives me some perspective of how long you've been in there. Tell us about the Power BI history. Tell me about, if you like, the timeframes that it's come about, the acceleration in market and how it moved to, pole position over its competitors so quickly.
Sure. So Power BI version 1.0 launched, I think sometime in 2014. And most people don't remember it because, it really did not get a lot of traction because it required customers to have a bunch of things. You needed to have Excel to author it. You needed to have a SharePoint online subscription. It was really, really complicated. So when Power BI, as we know and love it today, it launched in July 2015, it was radically different. It was, those were the days in which BI software solutions were mostly on-premise. Power BI came out with a completely SaaS, cloud-first SaaS service. It also came with a very, very disruptive economic model, one where the authoring experience, Power BI Desktop, was completely free. And the intent was to to make it possible for everybody to be able to experience what Power BI can do for them. And, the service, where you consume Power BI content was priced at $10 per user per month, which was, again, radical for the industry. And what was also very, very effective was the fact that Power BI was intensely focused on what our customers wanted us to do. So right from day one, we started off with ideas.powerbi.com, where literally anybody who cared about Power BI could tell us what they really wanted us to go do and vote for those features. And, we kept at it. So we shipped new features in the service every single week. We shipped a new version of Power BI Desktop every single month. And guess what? Customers love it. They loved it. The community loved it. And they really, really got into a very positive, collaborative cycle with Microsoft. So since then, over the last 4 years, Power BI just became 4 years old, maybe 2 weeks ago. It's been on a tear. It's just been an incredible journey.
Yeah. So during that period, you set this cadence, this weekly cadence. Have you seen that now affect other software divisions within Microsoft? Because you kind of set up quite a high bar, right?
Yeah, it's true. Because Microsoft overall has been, going through a journey under, Satya Nadella. And, some of the things that Power BI really, really exemplified as the new Microsoft is this high velocity execution, really making sure that we don't take months or, or quarters or potentially years to get features out, to really make sure that we have a steady update of capabilities. And that really gets customers excited because, when you go in and submit an idea on ideas.powerbi.com, if you had to wait for 6, 12, 18 months for Microsoft to do something about it, you're not going to be terribly motivated. But this feedback cycle is something that, Power BI, I think, was one of the first, if not the first product in Microsoft to adopt. And now, many other products do it. I have Power Apps does it, Microsoft Flow does it, many other products in Microsoft do it. So it was very, very innovative when we started. And now I think more and more teams in Microsoft follow a similar, process.
Yeah, you definitely set a high standard. Have you noticed now that over time, if you like, how would I say, so you'd have been very innovative, through as you ramped up and took the product up to a point. At what point did you then start going, if you like, the feature adds started to taper off, or are you still at the same velocity of adding features and functionality?
We've kept at it, Mark, believe it or not. So, I at our customer conference a couple of months ago, I shared a couple of slides that showed all the features month by month by month we shipped in all of 2018. And it was, I couldn't fit it on 2 slides, and this was very, very small font. So we've kept at it. So even now, if you go to our blog on powerbi.com, you will just see week after week where we ship new capabilities. And, some are bigger than others. In some cases, these are small features that customers are asking for. In other cases, there are big improvements to Power BI. But the fact that we keep at it and we make sure that innovation cycle continues at that velocity is something that customers are very, very excited about.
Wow, it's so good. Can you share some numbers around Power BI, market share or user base, and kind of what trends are you seeing around from a growth perspective?
Sure. Power BI is, we think, right now the world's largest, BI cloud service by, something like 2 orders of magnitude. Mm-hmm. If you look at the amount of data that Power BI, customers ingest into Power BI every month, it's something like 20 petabytes of data.
Wow.
Power BI runs about 30 million reports and dashboards, and it typically processes about 12 million queries per hour. So it's a very, very large-scale, massive cloud service. What's also interesting is if you want, it's hard to get publicly verifiable usage stats, but one of the things that I love to look at is Power BI Mobile. Power BI Mobile is available on, Apple's iOS store as well as, Google Play. And if you just open up your iPhone or your Android device and you look at Power BI Mobile and you'll notice that it's 4.7 on both of these stores. So we've paid a lot of attention to the product. But if you just look at the number of reviews that Power BI Mobile has, and if you compare them to any other BI product on the store, you'll find something like Power BI Mobile alone has 50 times as many reviews as all of the other BI products combined, right? So it just gives you a sense of the scale. And it's, the growth curve for Power BI has really been, pretty exponential. So we're very, very excited about the customer traction.
What do you see as the areas then to push into, as in you've seen this massive growth, biggest cloud by a factor of 2 when it comes to BI story. What do you see as kind of either the blue ocean opportunity out there or the white space that you can still address?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things that we've seen with customers is because Power BI really is so easy to get started with. You just download Power BI Desktop, 5 seconds to sign up, 5 minutes to get some real business value. We see very, very widespread adoption of Power BI. So we just, recently announced that over 95% of the Fortune 500 companies today use Power BI in some way, shape, or form. Right. So in some cases, it's big enterprise-wide deployments. In other cases, it's a department of two that's already gotten started. But to your point, one of the trends that's been really interesting is while overall Power BI has been growing very quickly, the growth of Power BI within large enterprise accounts, large deployments, often driven by central IT teams or central BI teams, has been growing even more quickly. So large enterprise deployments of Power BI has been up by something like 600% over the last 12 months. And in many cases, that's because Power BI, even though it's only a 4-year-old product, has been built with a lot of the technologies and IP that Microsoft has created over more than a decade and a half with SQL Server analysis services and SQL Server reporting services. So this is something that businesses, IT, database professionals know and love, and they're very, very familiar with it. So they're able to bring their skills to Power BI, and they're able to create this. Get started very quickly and create these large scalable systems.
So 4 years to go to this, to the market leader in this space. What do you reckon has driven the momentum around customer adoption of the technology?
I think it's first is the fact that it's so accessible, so really helping customers get started very quickly, putting literally zero barriers to a customer being able to experience the value of Power BI. Power BI Desktop is the authoring environment where you connect to over 100 different data sources. You do some sophisticated data transformations. I think we support something like 350 different types of data transformations, and you build these beautiful reports that you can put in front of your business users. And typically, the market price point for desktop was something like, for an authoring environment, was something like $1,000 to $2,000 per license. And here, Power BI Desktop, which PC Magazine, gave its editor's choice award 2 years in a row, is completely free. And which means that everybody can get started. Everybody can just try it out and see if Power BI is right for them. So it's created this groundswell of people who know Excel, for example, and a lot of the concepts in Power BI Desktop and a lot of the technologies are shared between Power BI Desktop and Excel. So the get data experience is driven by Power Query, which is exactly the get data experience in Excel. If you look at the formula language, it's called DAX, Data Analysis Expressions, which is exactly what you use in Excel to build Power Pivot models. So if we're even moving to the same Office ribbon. It's not just doesn't look like the Office ribbon. It is the Office ribbon in Power BI Desktop. So I think the fact that Desktop is completely free, the fact that it is the leading tool by independent folks such as PC Magazine, and the fact that it's very, very familiar to people in Excel has created this massive community of folks that love, Power BI Desktop. And then that's brought them, given them the ability to create content. And when you create interesting reports and dashboards, well, guess what you want to do? You want to share them with your business colleagues, right? You want to make sure that they get from their insights. So we've really designed Power BI for it to be, very self-service, very democratic, very collaborative. And, one of the things that we've done a really put a lot of focus on is our integration into Office 365. Because, the insights that, you hold for yourself are not as valuable as the insights that you share with your team. Right. So we really wanted to make sure that BI is a collaborative experience. So we've done a lot of integration into SharePoint, a lot of integration into Excel, a lot of integration into Teams, so that you can use Power BI as part of the collaborative experiences. So you allow people to, get in very quickly because they're familiar with Excel and they can author these reports, and you allow them to share these reports and dashboards and collaborate with their colleagues around the organization, with Office. And that's really been a very powerful combination.
So tell me a bit about the core pillars that drive your vision at this point.
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's 5 areas that that we look at when we look at the investments in Power BI, and all of this is around helping customers drive a data culture. So for us, a data culture is about helping every single employee in your organization make better decisions based on data. Where facts replace opinions, what you know matters more than who you know, and that is really, really empowering because it's about putting power in the hands of people who can add the most value. So to make that possible, to help customers drive a data culture, there's 5 areas we're investing in. The first, which we talked about, is self-service BI and collaboration through Office 365. Right. The second is about unifying, self-service BI and enterprise BI, and this is an interesting problem that customers have because most enterprise customers have half a dozen, sometimes a dozen BI tools, and this results in a lot of fragmentation. And fragmentation is poisonous to a data culture because you have silos within your organization all that have different views on the data, on the analytics, which makes it very hard for a company to be on the same page. So one of the areas that Microsoft has been leading is the fact that we have a strong presence in self-service BI with Power BI and a strong presence in enterprise BI with SQL Server Analysis Services and SQL Server Reporting Services. So we're unifying both, bringing all of the power of analysis services and reporting services directly in Power BI. So customers don't need to make a choice about having a self-service BI product or an enterprise BI product and have these worlds be spread apart. So that's the second area. The third area is helping customers with big data analytics by doing a really tight integration with Azure Data Services, things like Azure SQL Data Warehouse, Azure Data Factory, etc. And this is important because, one of the tenets of Power BI is we'll work with data wherever it is. So we have something like 110 connectors that ship out of the box. However, when customers build systems, they have not just the visualization layer, but they have the data warehousing layer. They have the data lake layer. So we've done a lot of work with our colleagues in the Azure team to integrate Power BI with the Azure data stack so that customers have less things to wire up, less things to manage, less things to monitor. So that's the third area of innovation. The fourth area of innovation for us is around artificial intelligence. With just the sheer amount of data out there, with the fact that data could be structured, unstructured, pictures, voice, video, etc., it's really hard to get analytics if it has to be done the old way. So we are fortunate at Microsoft because we have a lot of innovation on the AI front that Microsoft has invested in. So we're bringing a lot of those AI capabilities and democratizing them so that every BI user has access to it. So that's about making AI pervasive in Power BI. And the fifth pillar for us is about, going from insight to action and to automation. And that's all about the Power Platform. So Power BI is, part of the Power Platform, which is Power BI for insights, Power Apps so that you can act on those insights, and Microsoft Flow so you can automate your business processes. And all of these are focused on citizen developers. You don't need to be a programmer, but they all are designed to work together so you can go from insight to action to automation in a tight feedback loop.
I like that. Insight to action to automation.
That's exactly right. And it really resonates with customers because, insights are super powerful. You do want to put them into action.
Yeah, so true, so true. So let's talk a bit about the data story. How are you creating a unified experience for customers when it comes to working, with their data sets or even external data sets for that matter?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've made some important investments in 2 areas of Power BI. One is about what we refer to as enterprise semantic models. And let me give you an example. In Microsoft today, we have something called the KPI lake. Right, and that runs within Microsoft, and it connects data from about 60 different data sources. It has tens of billions of rows of data in it. It has complex business logic, so it defines about 2,200 KPIs that Microsoft uses to run our sales organization. Things like variance to budget, things like year-over-year growth, things like currency conversions, things like gap to forecast. So this is how we run our business. These are the KPIs that allow our sales leaders and our sales professionals to stay on top of their numbers. Now, the KPI lake is a large enterprise semantic model that runs in Power BI. Now, to make that possible, we've made a number of investments. One is we allowing customers to, certify these data sets. So IT certifies the KPI Lake as the official sources of truth in Microsoft, and which means that we have about about 20,000 salespeople who and sales leaders who use data from the KPI Lake on a daily basis. Now, when their business analysts connect into Power BI, they can find the KPI. They can see that it's a certified data set, right? So they know when they're using it, they're using the single source of truth. The second is it's been important for us to be truly open. The KPI Lake, which is an enterprise semantic model that used to run in things like analysis services, now runs in Power BI. Not only can you connect to it from Power BI to build your reports, but you can connect to it from Excel, right? So Excel, will honor all of the security in it, the row-level security. It can benefit from the KPIs and calculations, and you can create pivot tables and mash it up and do all sorts of ad hoc analysis in Excel if that's your tool of choice. But not only we have supported Excel, but we've gone even further. We have added something called XMLA support, which is XML for analytics, and that's an open protocol that Microsoft introduced something like 15 years ago. And that's how every tool in every BI product on the planet connects to analysis services. By adding XMLA into Power BI now looks like an analysis services cube for pretty much every other BI product, which already knows how to talk to AS. So if you build these enterprise semantic models in Power BI, now you can connect them with not just your Power BI users and your Excel users, but even pockets of your organization that may be using competitive BI tools. And by really opening up Power BI and making it accessible from your BI tool of choice, even if for customers who've standardized on Power BI, that really makes it easy for customers to be able to say, hey, I can go with a single unified product, and then support even the pockets of users that may be on alternatives. And we took that step because we really, really wanted to make sure that customers can standardize on Power BI.
So how do customers drive a data culture? As in, where, let's say they traditionally haven't. What do you see kind of successful customers do that really drive a culture around data?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. There's two aspects to it. One is just enabling, viral self-service adoption. Let me give you an example. In Microsoft, we have something like about 120,000 employees, right? Every month, we have about 110,000 employees that use Power BI. Right. So really, really, almost pretty much every single employee in the company uses Power BI. We also have something like about 30 to 40,000 of our employees that author Power BI content using Power BI Desktop. So in many ways, Power BI Desktop is kind of becoming like PowerPoint for data. Right. Now, the way we support end users is one is we enable viral self-service adoption by, conducting training, by enabling user groups, by having them participate in, local, ask me anything sessions. We have something like dashboard in a day trainings where people can go in and spend a day and then learn Power BI end to end. So we've been doing these things to drive viral self-service adoption. So that's one pillar. The second pillar is IT and business unit IT has also been getting involved. And we think about this as discipline at the center and flexibility at the core, right? So discipline at the center comes from defining these, certified data sets, defining the single source of truth, making them accessible in Power BI so that, when people connect to it, they know they're working with that, with the right data. So we do both. We do both centralized, deployment so that standardized reporting is available in Power BI, but we also do a lot to encourage self-service adoption.
Mm-hmm. So while I come back to this question again, is around how is the resonation with customers purely because it's been self-service driven, do you think?
That's been a huge part of it for sure. But it's also been the fact that, IT feels comfortable with Power BI because they see that it supports, all the capabilities that they've been used to with for governance, for application lifecycle management, for security, which is a huge deal, especially, in the cloud. So it's both, meeting the needs of end users for self-service, but also meeting the needs of IT and bringing a lot of the capabilities of SQL Server into Power BI to make that possible.
And what about then in the enterprise space, this unifying self-service? What trends are you seeing there?
So that one of the things that we've been focused on is bringing a lot of our operational reporting capabilities directly into Power BI. And let me just share a little bit about operational reports. So, in Power BI, you get these beautiful, self-service reports that you can slice and dice and get exactly what you want. However, there are many cases in which you want, a perfectly formatted, multi-page, pixel-perfect report that you can send to your printer that has precisely formatted headers and footers. This is the kind of reports that you want delivered in your mailbox at 9 a.m. in the morning. It might have the list of opportunities you need to focus on that day, etc. And this has been, really where SQL Server reporting services has really, been very, very impactful for customers. So we refer to these types of reports as paginated reports because they're multi-page, pixel perfect. You can export them to Excel, the formatting is preserved, etc. And so what we've done is we've integrated the same technology for these paginated reports that's in SQL Server reporting services into Power BI. So you no longer need to fragment your self-service BI with your enterprise BI, your interactive reports with your paginated reports. All of them converge into a single Power BI infrastructure. All of them are discoverable. All of them are governed the same way. All of them share the same permissions model. All of them can connect to the same certified data sets. So this is really, really powerful because it allows you to unify your self-service BI with your enterprise BI. What IT drives with what your end users drive.
Wow. As in, I can see the value in a lot of the corporations I've worked in. That's definitely something that was being requested. So fantastic. What about connectivity? You talked about 110 connectors. From an on-premise point of view, as well as the connectors that are out there, what are the key ones that have been adopted and used? And what's your vision for the future when it comes to connectors?
Yeah, it's a good question. So from day one, we've taken an open platform connectivity very, very seriously. So we have a very wide range of connectors, both to cloud-based data sources, as well as on-premise data sources. So in the cloud, we have connectors to pretty much every Azure service, and you'd expect that of Microsoft. So check, we've definitely done that. But we've gone further. So whether you're connecting to Salesforce, whether you're connecting to Google Analytics, whether you're connecting to any of the SaaS providers out there, you will find a connector that's available in Power BI, and it's just part of the product experience. We also have very strong connectivity back to on-premises, and this is where our data integration gateway, which is part of the Power BI suite, it's just included in your Power BI product. It's not something extra that you need to buy, but that's part of your connectivity experience. So you can install the data integration gateway and connect back to data sources on-prem. So things like, if you have your SAP instance running on-prem, great, you can just connect to it directly from through the data integration gateway. And lastly, we've opened up a connectivity framework. So today, every month, everywhere we have new connectors that are published. Some of them are built by Microsoft, but many of them are built by ISVs out there because they see their customers rapidly adopting Power BI. So there's a lot of demand, and by creating an open connectivity platform, we enable them to help themselves. We're no longer the only company that makes connectors for Power BI. Many other software vendors do, and that all of that accrues to the Power BI ecosystem as well.
So, I'm a big fan of Common Data Service, CDS, coming from that kind of background. Tell me, the Power Platform, one of its core pillars is Power BI. And how did that kind of come about? Like, I understand the logic of, you need reporting, analysis, insights, that type of thing. But what was the decisioning-making process around it being a core pillar with the Power Platform and therefore integrated with CDS?
It's something that was thought of from day one. So this, from the early stages, as we thought about Power Apps, we followed a lot of the patterns that we had established with Power BI. The focus on citizen developers, the focus on open platform connectivity, a cloud-first SaaS experience, deeply integrated into Office 365, leveraging the Azure stack. So all of these principles are common between, Power BI, Power Apps, and Microsoft Flow. So these three products are not three different products that happen to work together. These three products are products that are built together, they're engineered together, they're designed to work together. I build Power BI. My colleague Charles Lamanna, who I know has also been on your show, builds Power Apps and Flow. And So not only do we share all of these core tenets, we also do a lot of integration between the products. So, if you're in your Power BI report and you want to take some action right there, wouldn't it be great if you could just do write back within your Power BI report? And we don't have to invent that in Power BI because Power Apps allows you to build all kinds of applications that have, hundreds of connectors. So you could build a Power App and you could embed that directly in your Power BI report for a single unified experience. And, the Power BI elements of the report interact with the Power App elements of the report so that to the end user, it doesn't feel like something is, munged in. It actually feels like an integrated experience. You can go the other way around. You can integrate Power BI, reports or dashboards into Power Apps so that you can bring the analytics into your application. You can take have alerts in Power BI and trigger flow actions and flow. So you can say, hey, if this KPI turns red, trigger this business process, and you can author the business process in Microsoft Flow. So it can be pretty sophisticated in terms of the things that it can do. So it really has been, engineered together from day one so that customers, don't have to do the wiring themselves. These feel like an integrated set of experiences.
Yeah. For a long time, in the dynamics world, we talked about structured data and unstructured data. So we'd say, for unstructured data, we'd recommend using SharePoint. For structured data, we would use the model-driven, what we call now the CDS environment as such. What's your view from, I can understand analysis, etc., on structured data. What about Power BI when it comes to unstructured data?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And this is an area that, has been growing very, very quickly because, people have all kinds of text. They have reviews posted on Yelp. They have, pictures that they post on social media. They have, voice, that they have that needs to be transcribed and analyzed. They have video that can be analyzed. So this is an area where, if you look at the growth of unstructured data, it far outstrips the growth of structured data. And all of this creates really interesting digital signal about the things that our customers care about the most, which is their customers, their products, their people, their operations. So one of the things that we've really benefited from is the investments that Microsoft has made in artificial intelligence. So we have a suite of services, called the Azure Cognitive Services. And they're based on, the research that Microsoft has done. And Microsoft has achieved human-level parity on many of these core capabilities: vision, speech, text, language understanding. So what we've done in Power BI is we said, we don't need to invent this. Other people are doing that in Microsoft. But we want to take this and make it widely accessible to our BI base. So what we've done is we've integrated Azure Cognitive Services directly into Power BI. It's included in Power BI Premium. What it means is, let's say you have, you're a hotel chain and you're analyzing Yelp reviews, right? Which means that you can pick your, customer feedback column and just say, hey, analyze the text for me, split it into the key phrases that matter. Score the sentiment, analyze the pictures, detect what the pictures are about, right? And all of this now goes from unstructured data into structured data in your data model, which at that point you can just use Power BI and you can analyze the data. You can see which hotels are being highly rated, which ones are being poorly rated. What are the things that customers talk about when they highly rate your hotel? What do they talk about when they have lower ratings, right? What kind of pictures are customers posting? So these really help you keep tabs on your end-to-end system, your structured data, your unstructured data, and everything is focused on enabling business analysts who don't have to write any code. It is just part of the user experience in Power BI.
Yeah. We're seeing, artificial intelligence come into play more and more. At the recent Microsoft Business Applications Summit, we saw the release of AI Builder. What's your lens on it from a Power BI perspective when it comes to artificial intelligence and what you're going to see or leverage moving forward?
Yeah, it's so our vision for artificial intelligence across the Power Platform is very comprehensive. So for Power Apps and Flow, the AI technologies are built using AI Builder, which is really focused on end user building, helping people build applications and automate business processes. For Power BI, the same technologies serve a different purpose. They help you analyze data, right? And so both of us, steal shamelessly from the same Azure researchers, so the same Microsoft research team, but we try to build experiences that are suitable for our audience. And so from the Power BI team, we've added several new capabilities that really have gotten customers very excited. The first is the ability to build automated machine learning models directly in Power BI. And essentially what a customer can do is they can look at your data, they can say, hey, here's the outcome I want to predict. Power BI will analyze all the features and recommend which features to consider, right? You can accept a recommendation or you can tweak it. And then you can ask Power BI to go build, a binary classification, a forecasting model, etc. And Power BI will do the work behind the scenes to build an automated machine learning model, and it will say, hey, this outcome that you're trying to predict, is just a new column in your table. And by the way, as new data comes in, the model reruns to make sure that you have the prediction available to you at all the time. And this automated machine learning capability is not something we invented. It's something that the Azure team invented, but we have really built experiences that make it very, very easy for a business analyst who's not a data scientist, who won't use R or Python, but they can use Power BI and our drag and drop experiences to create. So that's been very, very exciting for customers. Another capability is we introduced this thing called an AI visual, right? And this is really interesting because one of the things we realized is that a lot of people don't understand the concepts in AI, but they understand business. So the first AI visual we shipped is something called the key influencers. So what it does is it's just another visual in Power BI, although a little bit more sophisticated. The data science just blurs into the background, right? But it allows you to go understand very quickly and very visually what drives an outcome that you care about. So back to our hotels example, you can say, hey, Power BI, tell me what gets my customers to keep returning to my hotel chain, right? Or what drives customers to churn. And what Power BI will do is it'll analyze all the data using a logistic regression model, and it'll tell you that, hey, customers that purchase a spa visit are 2.5x more likely to return. But in the age group of 25 to 30, customers who rent sports equipment are, 3x more likely to return. Customers from, who come for a honeymoon are not likely to return as much as customers who come for relaxation. So, all of this is very visual, and the data science just blurs into the background. It's really not about data science, it's about driving business outcomes. And that has been enormously popular for both our business analysts and our business users. So those are the areas that we're investing in, again, using technologies that Microsoft has invented elsewhere.
So good. So let's talk a bit about customer stories then, as in, we've slowly moved into that space. Can you tell me, give us some examples of some, really outstanding successes you've seen come about using Power BI?
Sure. One of the exciting stories we've had is about, the Heathrow Airport, right? So London Heathrow Airport uses Power BI to be able to manage the whole airport, to get end-to-end visibility of the operations and keep the hundreds of thousands of passengers who come there every single day moving on time, right? So they use Power BI reports. They run these Power BI reports against an Azure data stack. They have data coming from many different systems in the Heathrow Airport that integrate to provide these experiences. And I think they have about 75,000 employees that can have access to these analytics so that they understand the state of the airport. They understand whether passengers are getting from point A to point B on time. They can understand the bottlenecks. They can do their planning. They can see how the results today at this minute are different from their plans, what the potential bottlenecks are. So it's a great example of a customer using Power BI, but also a customer benefiting from the rest of the Azure data stack. Another example in the Netherlands is a customer called Shubi. Shubi is the largest fashion retailer in the Netherlands, and they use Power BI to be able to track inventory in their different stores, and they actually use their automated machine learning technology. So they use it to predict what inventory they need on a per store basis, and it's a pretty complicated problem because they have thousands of inventory items, and as you can imagine, in fashion, things change very quickly. So they can use Power BI as well as their machine learning technology to be able to predict and manage inventory.
Yeah. One more. Give me one more.
One more. Another customer that's really exciting is a customer called Medtronic. They're the world's largest medical device manufacturer. They have presence pretty much in every country. They have about 100,000 employees. And what they use Power BI for is to optimize their supply chain. So this is an example of where they actually use our key influencers visual to be able to understand what drives products to be out of stock, right? To be back ordered, right? And they have something like 2 million product and location combinations, right? Because they have a large product line, they have lots of different locations in which these products need to be stocked. And they really need to understand where, what are the systemic issues that drives products to be on back order. And, when products on back order, it's a really bad thing because customers are very unhappy because they have to wait. And from a Medtronic's perspective, it not only differs revenue, but sometimes they might lose the deal altogether because somebody else has something that's available to a customer. So they actually use our AI visual, the key influencers visual, to be able to keep track on the supply chain.
Yeah, so good, so good. So just looking at resources right now, as in for people maybe listening here, how can the layperson get hold of Power BI today?
It's very easy, Mark. All you go to is powerbi.com, and right there you will be able to download Power BI Desktop. It should take only a minute or two, you're productive right off the bat. You can sign up for the Power BI service. It should be less than a minute for you to be able to do that, and that's pretty much all you need to do. You can download Power BI Desktop. You don't have to pay us a thing. You can sign up for the Power BI service. We offer a 90-day free trial. We also have a personal version that's free forever. All the training content for Power BI is directly posted on powerbi.com. So under Power BI, you'll see a Learn section, and you'll find that all our training content is there. And as you get deeper into Power BI and you get familiar with our technologies, you should probably just watch our blog because we ship new features as we talked about every single week. So our blog is kind of where we keep our customers up to date. And then the last one is ideas.powerbi.com. So if you want to tell us what you want us to go build, that's a great place to go do it. And over 250,000 of our customers have either created new ideas that they want us to work on, or they voted for ideas. And we pay a lot of attention to what customers tell us to do.
Man, those are some incredible numbers. What about partners? What partners do you see, or what is the success patterns you're seeing from partners that are really growing strong Power BI businesses, analytics businesses, that type of thing? And do you think there is space for new partners to come into the market here?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked me this question. So I'm going to divide partners broadly into two buckets. So let's start with systems integrators, right, or value-added resellers, and we see a lot of opportunity for SIs and VARs with Power BI because the demand for Power BI talent far outstrips the supply today. So one of the things that we've been doing directly from engineering is helping build a very, very strong partner ecosystem. So you can sign up to be a Power BI partner directly on powerbi.com. So if you're a SQL Server partner, if you're an Office 365 partner, you should really consider doing that because a lot of your customers already have and are using Power BI today. What we do is we do a lot of work to enable you. So there's Power BI trainings you can take, there's Power BI certifications, but there's also direct engineering to partner connections that happen on a weekly basis. So my team does weekly webinars where we have engineers and product managers talk about the features that we've built, talk about how customers are using them, talk about frequently asked questions, talk about where we're going to invest and what features are coming out. And that happens consistently every week and has been going on for more than 2 years. So you feel really connected into the engineering team. We also help you drive leads into your business. So we started something called the Dashboard in a Day program, which is a very large-scale program now. I think we had something like 700 Dashboard in a Day events last fiscal year, which for us, as ends in July. We had over 20,000 customers who spent a day with a partner in a Microsoft facility, right? 20,000 customers, a whole day. And the demand for this event was mostly driven through in-product experiences. It was not something where salespeople called the customer or the partner called the customer, but 70% of the customers in the room were invited by, in-product experiences in Power BI would say, hey, I know you're using the product. There's a dyad event by this recommended partner in a Microsoft facility. Would you like to attend, right? And this has been very popular with customers because it allows them to get a day of free training on Power BI. It's been very popular with partners because they get 20, 30 customers in a room and they get to really build a relationship with them. So we had about 20,000 customers go through it, but we had about 50,000 customers register. So even though we had this 700 events, we could only accommodate less than half of the demand. And this runs in 28 different countries. So huge focus on our system integration partners and our VARs. The second bucket is ISVs. And there we've had a phenomenal amount of momentum as well. One is Power BI Embedded allows you as an ISV to embed analytics into your application, right? So, because if you're using, let's say, our Dynamics 365 for sales, you might just want the analytics, right, to be part of your application and not have to go install anything or configure anything, right? So over 3,000 ISVs now today have Power BI embedded in the application and just part of the application experience. In that case, Power BI is just another Azure service, right? We also have a very strong partner program around custom visuals. So Power BI opened up its visualization stack early on. So now we have several hundred visuals that have been built by ISVs and shared with the community. Some of them are free, many of them are monetized. So these are high-value visuals that are essentially create an ecosystem around Power BI. And the last one for ISVs is something called Power BI template apps. And this allows ISVs to build their application and deploy them and make them available to Power BI customers on AppSource, right? So if you want to create an analytics app that runs in the context of Power BI, connects to data sources, builds reports and dashboards, it could be your application, so you're making this available to your customers, or it could be value that you're providing for third-party application that you intend to monetize. So that's been something that we recently launched, only about 3 months ago. Now we have, I think, something like about 60 or so apps already on AppSource, and that's growing quickly as well. So lots of opportunities for SIs, lots of opportunities for ISVs.
Yeah. I tell you, from early on, the custom visual element of what you could do has always been very impressive. There's really only imagination is the limit in a way in what you can visualize.
Totally. I mean, people do such creative things. One of our really good partners, Zebra BI, which is who was based in Slovenia, create these beautiful financial visuals that customers really love. We have another partner called ValQ that created an entire planning system using a custom visual framework, and that's been really popular as well. So people do some incredible things.
Mm-hmm. So what about consultants? So we talked about partners, we talked about the individuals that want to use it in their organization. What about consultants? What part do they play, if you like, in getting up to speed themselves, also kind of enabling this kind of data culture and playing their part in using the technology to drive, business outcomes?
Yeah, for consultants, Power BI has been a huge opportunity because their customers need so much help, right? So all of these enterprise BI projects, the ones that create the semantic model, the ones that create operational reporting, the ones that customers roll out to a specific department or work group or sometimes organization-wide, these are ones that require some careful engineering, right? These are not things that you would just quickly build up and then share with 5 of your co-workers. So these are more enterprise BI projects. And that's a massive opportunity for consultants. And typically what I see is that the consultants who are very familiar with SQL Server and Azure Data Services have a huge advantage because every Azure Data Services project, every SQL Server out there ends up as being a potential data source and opportunity for analytics and BI and an opportunity for Power BI. So we're seeing a ton of traction with consultants. And what I would recommend is, again, just go to powerbi.com. We have not only basic content to get started, but advanced content. So we have detailed white papers. We have technical reference guides. We have security papers. Our blogs keep you up to date on everything that's going on. We have our community section where we have lots of, avid discussions with community members about, different technical topics, and my team engages directly. We also have user groups, and this is I think we have something like 250 user groups, again, on powerbi.com right now worldwide, and they're growing quickly. It also gives, the user groups gives consultants an opportunity to connect with local customers, right? So have pizza and beer on a Friday, and then, meet your local customers and share some insight but build relationships. And it also fosters a sense of community. So, we see lots of opportunities for consultants to engage in Power BI.
I love it. What's kind of the big Power BI event of the year that's a must attend if you're working in the space?
The next one is Ignite, which is coming up in November. I think November 3rd or 4th this year. So it's Microsoft's biggest, customer conference. We're going to be there in full force. So you have lots of people from the Power BI team there, specifically from engineering. And we have some pretty cool announcements planned. So, if you're thinking about attending Ignite, I'd highly encourage it and would love to see you there.
Excellent. What about what about the Microsoft BizApp Summit? Is that the other key event of the year?
It is. It is the premier event for business applications, and I think next year we just had one, so it just wrapped up in June.
That's right. Yep.
The next one I believe is a little bit earlier next calendar year, so I think it's around April or May. If you're interested in business applications, please attend the Business Application Summit. So I would say
it's in California, isn't it? California.
That's right. You're right.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's in California. So huge opportunity for us to meet with customers. And one of the interesting things of the Business Application Summit is we have a lot of our engineers there. So something like about, I think about 120, 130 engineers attend the Business Application Summit. So you can meet all of them. They're there to talk to our customers, answer all of your detailed technical questions, and then tell us a thing or two about what you'd like us to go build.
So one last question I have before we get onto some quick fire questions to wrap up, and that is, if you look at the next 5 years, which is, the close but distant future, what do you see changing in an industry?
I think a couple of things. One is I think, everybody is realizing that BI is a cloud first place. So I think 5 years from now, the concept of BI and the cloud will just be synonymous. The second is AI is going to have a huge role to play to help customers, sort through and analyze the data. And the third is that, the concept of moving from insight to action to automation is really, really powerful. And it's very early stages from a BI perspective. So I think that's going to really, really resonate.
Awesome. It's been fantastic having you on the show. A couple of quick fire questions for you. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
That's a good one. I think one of my mentors told me that, be bold and be willing to take some chances. Because I think in a lot of big companies, I think people are sometimes a little bit too afraid to make mistakes. And, coming from a startup myself, it feels like there's just so much opportunity. And it's, so I think I would say, hey, the best advice I got is don't be afraid to take risks.
I love it. If you could relive one moment in your life, which would it be?
I think it would be some of the very early days of my own startup because I was something like 23 years old and I was very scared and, I figured things out.
What are you currently learning?
Every day I spent a lot of time on community and on Twitter because I learned so much from our customers and our users. So, it gives me a lot of energy to just read about what they're tweeting about, what they're blogging about, respond and engage with them. So good, so good. Who do you recommend as a guest for the show in the future? Good question. I would definitely recommend Amir Netz. He's the CTO of Power BI. He's spent more than 2 decades in BI. He's a visionary. I think he would have a ton to share. I think it'd be very exciting to have him. Excellent. I'll get you to introduce me to him if you could. That would be great. Arun, it's been fantastic to have you on the show. I've learned so much. Didn't get to all my questions, but before you go, if people want to connect with you online, maybe Twitter, LinkedIn, something like that, what's the best place for them to find you? Sure. It's Arun Ulag, ARUNULAG on Twitter. So that would be the best way. Thanks so much, Mark. I really, really enjoyed the conversation. I really appreciate your time. Hey, thanks for listening. Remember, the show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/116. We'll cover everything from the various resources and assets they'll be provided for you to review. Anyhow, I'd love to get some feedback from you. If you are enjoying the Power 365 show, I would love it if you could leave a review on iTunes or Google Play, whatever podcasting tool you use. I'd love to hear some feedback. Tell me if the guest we're having on is a right fit for you, or if there's any other guests that you'd like to see come on the show from Microsoft. Anyhow, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.